Chris, thanks very much for joining us for an off-season update. We've signed 4 players thus far, but the biggest name is obviously the return of Premiership player Adam Marcon. You must be absolutely stoked to have him back.
Delighted. So probably not a huge shock to the football community that Adam's decided to rejoin us, but it was obviously priority number 1 for us as soon as he came off an AFL list. So we would love to see his AFL career continue, but obviously this was always going to be home for him when he did end up at Richmond. So he's looked really motivated, and I think that shows by signing a 3-year deal. He's committed his long-term future to the club, which is great. So such a great player and such a great person, and I think that we're probably going to see some upside even now, having come out of the system. So expecting him to be an even better player, obviously, now than when he left. He had a great year winning Richmond's VFL Best and Fairest, and obviously played a couple of really good games of AFL footy as well. So looking forward to seeing him back in action, running around in the number 9.
It's fantastic to have him back. Now we turn our attention now from, I suppose, the biggest name to the biggest frame in 203cm ruckman Jackson Gray. Such an interesting backstory. What can you tell us about him?
Bit of a smoky Jackson, so I think he's going to be a player that we'll be talking about a bit going forward. So really a developing ruckman still, so we've certainly brought him in, and he's got the opinion that he's still got a lot of work to do and coming from a fair way back in terms of his football development. So Jackson was originally in the Brisbane Lions Academy. He was in the first ever intake with the Lions there, and from there sort of played a variety of sort of football up in Queensland, played a bit of Atherby reserves, then spent a couple of years in the Army, so that's obviously stunted his football development somewhat. So he's come out of that and was looking to make the transition to Melbourne, and luckily enough we've sort of identified him and brought him into our program. So he's got a pretty impressive highlights reel. He's a modern day ruckman in terms of how he moves around the ground, and certainly got all the attributes that I think AFL clubs are looking at these days with rucks, in terms of really good below his knees, fair bit of aggression, and really good 360-degree tap work. So he's an exciting prospect. Look, like all big boys, he's going to take some time, but I think hopefully he can come in and hopefully we get a glimpse of him at senior football this year, obviously depending on how quickly he develops, but he's going to be a really exciting prospect going forward, and I think he's certainly one that's going to have his name up in AFL lights hopefully in the not too distant future.
That's great to hear. And just to finish off on the arrivals, 2 young midfielders who have signed in Brody Romanski and Lachlan Bramble. They're obviously going to add to our talented youth at the moment.
Yeah, so firstly I guess with Brody, really optimistic that he'll get an opportunity at AFL draft day. He's obviously in that process now, and that's obviously his number 1 priority, but if he doesn't, look, you know, we've got a really good player there, so hopefully he gets his name called out, but if not, he's going to come in and add to our program straight away. For everyone who saw his 2 games that he played for us at senior level, he can already play at the level, so it's certainly, he's far from the finished product as a footballer, but we've got real confidence he can come in and make an impact straight away, and such a great kid, and really excited to have him in our program. Lockie's a kid we've identified from the Calder Cannons. Really gives us something in what we're after in terms of better foot skills in our program. So we really identified him this year through his work, was in the big Metro squad and obviously played for Calder as well. So looking to give us a bit of outside run and some really polish with his foot skills. So delighted to get a quality Calder Cannons kid into our program again.
Well, that finishes off our arrivals. We might move on to the departures. Can you run through the guys who are leaving the club at this stage for us?
So Cameron Lockwood obviously is the one that we announced pretty early on. So unfortunately, we didn't get the finish that we wanted with Cam, but look, he'll move on, and I'm sure he'll be enjoying his next 12 months overseas with his fiancée and experiencing a new life over there for the time being. And then also from there, we've lost a couple of our players who are moving sort of interstate. Jake Maher, who's moving up to Queensland, and obviously recently announced Jack Johnston, who's sort of moving back to Gippsland as well. So Jack's been a fantastic servant of the club, coming here sort of 4 years ago, and a really key part of our club and our culture, so it's disappointing to see him go, but I think we always knew that the city life wasn't for him, and that he was always going to head back home and head back with his girlfriend once his university finished. So it does leave a pretty big hole in our playing list though, so it's a focus for us to go out and try to replace him and look for players that might fit into that mould. So obviously wish all these guys all the best, but we'll be following their progress no matter where they go from here.
Well, thanks very much for your time, Chris. Obviously, it's a very busy time of year for you, and maybe we'll check back in a few weeks' time for a further update.
Sounds good.